Like, if you can't sing or act, you can be a politician and you'll be famous.
Top positions in our government who have never had a proper job, who went from university into politics and all they know is politics.
We should stop calling them public servants because they don't serve the public, they serve themselves. And that's why they're there. I honestly think most of the people in politics now do it because they want to be famous. Like, if you can't sing or act, you can be a politician and you'll be famous. And I actually get the impression people like Angela Rayner, that's why she's done it. I think they are just the worst type of self-serving scum. Like, they get into it because they want to feather their own nest. And I think almost none of them have any sense of like public service at all. We should stop calling them public servants because they don't serve the public, they serve themselves. And that's why they're there. I think we're shockingly led compared to the past, definitely.
No, something's definitely happened over the last, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Um, you said public service. There was a time when people, not everybody, there's always been people who went to feather their own nest by going to Parliament. Of course there has. But there was many people there who wanted to be, who were public servants. And now it all seems to be about self-service. And I think the crux of the matter for me is when we started with career politicians, when we started having people going to university, studying politics, coming out of university, getting a job as a secretary for an MP or researcher for a political party, being given a safe seat, then, being promoted. And next thing you know, you've got people in top positions in our government who have never had a proper job, who went from university into politics and all they know is politics. And it's constantly climbing the greasy pole and doing favors for each other, where at least we used to have people who'd been miners, who'd run businesses, who'd been doctors, who'd been in the army, been a captain, and they brought a different perspective into the House of Commons. Now, no matter what party you're talking about, they're all the same. They all went to the same universities, all did the same degrees. They're all friends outside of universities, outside of the Commons, and there's no different voices. It's the uni party.
There's no authenticity either, is there? Like, back in the day, the House of Commons, like, nobody wanted to do that job. They were like butchers and bakers and candlestick makers, and they had to do it to serve. They were called to serve. Now, I mean, a great example is one of my local MPs back home, Anna Turley. She represents Redcar. She's got about as much in common with Redcar as Gandhi had. Like, she's not from there. She's from miles away. And they do it all the time. They drop ship them in, like you said. These mercenaries who leave school when they're 19, they start working with the party. And when they're 30, they represent them in a safe seat. It's a joke. Like, I think the entire system is completely failing. It's not what it was supposed to be. They were supposed to represent you. Like in America, they call it the House of Representatives. The Commons is supposed to be that, isn't it? It's they represent the common man. And they don't represent the common man. They represent a sort of insufferable, smug, middle-class elite who don't know the first thing about anything, certainly in the areas they get parachuted into because they're not from there. And I mean, Anna Turley's a great example because I've got a bee in my bonnet about her. Because when she was she was representing Redcar and she was one of these Remainers, and she was constantly banging the drum about staying in the European Union. And Redcar, being Redcar, was, a poor northern town in the northeast, was one of the most heavily Brexit voting areas in the country. It was like 71% or something. And then she spends a year parroting the same sort of nonsense as Guy Verhofstadt or something. It's like, you get elected to represent them. I've made a joke about it a lot. When I was talking about that, I was like, if I got elected to represent Redcar and 80% of the people in Redcar said, we want to get rid of the pier and we want to build a gigantic 50-foot penis on the seafront, well, then I'd support it because I think it's a terrible idea, but the locals want it. And that's exactly what's missing. The House of Commons does not represent common people. They represent the sneering globalist elite that think in lockstep on every issue all of the time. And that's why the Tories lost, isn't it? It's not because people like Labour. Look at the petition they've got up. It's over 1 million signers and stuff. They hate Labour. Essentially, because most people didn't bother voting because we're so poorly led, they got in with a real-time vote of about 19% of the population, the voting age population. Everybody hates them. So the system is not worth the paper it's printed on at this point. We're not represented. It's a complete joke. I think we need to rip it all up and start from scratch, to be honest. Because, again, what is common about the House of Commons? Nothing.
No, absolutely not. And politicians, I honestly believe, think this, which is, I'm better than you. I'm better than the people I represent. I've been to a university. I've got a degree. I'm actually now an MP. Of course, I'm better than you. I know a lot more than you. And the more power I have and the more decisions I make on your behalf, not what you want, but on your behalf, life will be better for all you idiots out there. Because if only you could be more like me, your lives would be better. Now, that may be true or not be true, depending on every situation is different. But that isn't their job. Their job isn't to rule over us. Their job is to represent us. But they think they're our overlords and our masters, but they're not. They're public servants. They're there to serve us. And I never come across a politician these days who understands that. They want to be our overlords, and sometimes benevolently they're doing it for the right reasons, they think, to improve our lives. But I don't want these people to run my life for me. I want them to do what the people want them to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that reminds me of the famous C.S. Lewis quote. Have you heard that famous C.S. Lewis quote where he's talking about how they'll crush you because they'll be clear of conscience while they're doing it. Like the robber baron is possibly better for you than one of these sort of benevolent dictators, because they actually don't feel guilty about the things they do because they're so convinced of the morality of their argument. Keir Starmer's a dead good example, isn't he? Because he sort of sums that up perfectly.